Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest in the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today we are recording a special edition of All Things Indie. That's where each and every month myself and co-host Stephen David Brooks come on the show and we get into everything independent from film to music to you name it. And today our special guest is Tom Chaney. Let me tell you, Tom is he's a producer, he's a writer, he's a filmmaker. And in the background, for those that are listening to this in their car, you can't see this, but there's these amazing movie posters and this big old head of a Sasquatch. So Tom, one of the things Tom's known for is his movie Squatch. So we'll get into that and more. But first thing first, Tom, Stephen, welcome.
Thank you. Honored to be a part of it. I
Yeah,
really
good to be
appreciate
here.
the opportunity.
All right, Steven. So in the warm up, I was telling you this is one of my favorite segments that I get to do each and every month. And no offense to anybody else if they're listening, it's cool. I like working with you too. But what I love about this particular segment of All Things Indie is the filmmakers, the creators, the people that you curate to bring on the show, like top notch. So, Steven, each and every month you curate an amazing and unique guest. Turning it over to you. Why, Tom? Why today? Like, talk to me.
Well, Tom is the first guest that I do not know personally. For years, Gary Jones, a previous guest on our podcast, is talking about his buddy Tom Chaney. His buddy Tom Chaney's doing this. His buddy Tom Chaney's making that movie. His buddy Tom Chaney's involved in this. And after Gary did our show, he said, "You should have my buddy Tom Chaney on." So here's Tom Chaney.
Yeah, it's amazing we haven't met, Stephen. It sounds like we've crossed so many different paths and done so many things very close to one another, but here we are. We finally meet.
Love it.
Yep.
So, Tom, maybe let's start with just a little bit about your background as a filmmaker. Really, I'm curious, how'd you get into the business?
So, like so many filmmakers, you grow up and you become fascinated with the process of making movies, and then you realize how movies are made and the roles and that different people play. And from very early on, I wanted to make films.
Wait,
Figured
what's early on? Like, was there a film? Was there like, what's early on? When you 5 years
early
old,
on,
15? I don't know.
8 years old, I mean,
Wow.
my father would take me to the movies and we would go see the new Ray Harryhausen film. And I think a lot of filmmakers, especially older, my age, they're going to tell you Ray Harryhausen was a big inspiration for
Mm.
them. And he was the animator that did the amazing Sinbad movies and Jason of the Argonauts. And just as I grew up, I got a Super 8 camera, started shooting movies, started to meet other filmmakers. I went to a special program for media production in high school. I went to
Mm.
college for
Was
it.
that like ninth, 10th grade? I'm curious, like when in high school?
Actually, my senior year. So they had
Oh,
just
that's
started a
great.
program in the not even in my school district. It just what they have the Detroit area film teachers or DAFT, and
Mm.
I was kind of a star student where I was going to high school, and they said, they're starting this program in the Wayne Memorial School District. You should go be a part of it. So every day I would get up, I would drive and be a part of this production. It
Did
was
you,
just,
random question, you're in Michigan still, I believe, yeah?
I am.
So,
Yep.
so were you a drive-in person? I remember the drive-in. I
Oh,
love the
yes, of
drive-in.
course. Yes, of course. Yeah.
Steven, were you a drive-in person? Did they have drive-ins where you grew up?
They did, but my parents wouldn't let me go.
Oh,
The drive-in was big in the Michigan culture. I feel like going to the
Yeah.
drive with your parents. Like I go with my parents and like all kinds of things. Like when I was young, I loved the drive-in.
Yeah.
yeah. And
But
there's a
I
fun.
grew up, no, I was
Go
going to
ahead.
say, I grew up near the Century 21 theaters were some of the first giant curved screen domed theaters existed. So that was the movie palace. I didn't have to go to a drive-in. I could go
Poor
there
you.
with
I'm
surround
stuck in a
sound and so on.
field. Like
Yeah.
he's too fancy for us, Tom. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, what I was going to
I was a
say.
big city guy. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And where did you grow up,
San
Stephen?
Jose.
Oh, okay. So, ironically, talk about drive-ins. There's a drive-in still up in Traverse City, Michigan, and everybody loves it. It's called the Cherry Bowl Drive-In. And last summer, they actually had a special showing of Squatch on a Wednesday night in the middle
Wow.
of July, and it was electric. So we went up there. It might have been the first public showing of the film, but it was just fantastic to go back into that era. They showed the movie, they sold out the place. Everybody loves Bigfoot. And it was just really neat, very nostalgic to be a part of that again. Sorry, you talked about drive-in theaters.
No, I had to. That was like, well,
Yeah.
I didn't know that story, but I was supposed to ask that. Like to see your film in a drive-in, like that doesn't happen anymore. Like that's
Yeah,
what,
that's right.
Steven, do you remember your first camera? I know Tom mentioned his, or the first time you like, what was, I don't think I got that nuance from you. Do you remember your first camera?
First film camera.
Yeah, I'm just
It
curious.
was a Vivitar 8 millimeter camera. Oh, I no, I take it back. It was a regular 8 camera that my father had, kind of had to hand crank. And when we go on vacation, I would just be shooting random shots of sights and that kind of thing.
That's only for the kids these days when they're like, you had to hand crank. That's for the kids watching.
Yeah, right, right.
No, and it was actually a 16 millimeter piece of film,
Mm,
25 feet long. And after you shot 25 feet, you flipped it over and exposed the other half. And then
mm,
later in processing, they sliced it in half and made it 8 millimeter.
mm.
That's really old school.
So
Yeah.
Tom, I'm curious on your end. So okay, so you're in high school, you're in this program. I get it. You're obviously excelling. Like when did you know? And I don't know if this was in high school, if this decision was immediate or later down the line, but how did you know that this would be like a path and something and a passion that you would continue to pursue?
It was just something I really, really wanted to do, and I was gonna do it. And I'll never forget. So, like, my dad, I hadn't applied to any colleges or anything. I said, Dad, I'm just gonna make movies. And, being here in Michigan, it's like,
In
what?
Michigan,
Yeah,
that
right.
couldn't have gone over well.
And I'll never forget, he put his hand on my shoulder and said, that movie making thing is great, but you probably should get a college degree as a backup. So I ended up going to college. I got a degree in telecommunications and film and, met more filmmakers and then started to work on independent movies locally. Somebody over here is making something, somebody over here is making something. Started to work in the freelance world and started making my own first film while I was in college. And just kept going. It's always been a passion of mine. No
What
matter
was your
what.
first actual on-screen credit?
Probably there was a movie, Steven, that was shot outside of Ann Arbor, Michigan called The Carrier. And that's where I met Gary Jones.
Hmm.
The Carrier was put together by a guy named Nathan White, raised, I don't know, probably around $1 million, and shot this movie all through the fall. I actually took a semester of college off, and it was an amazing experience. The movie didn't turn out that great. Sorry, Nathan, but just being a part of a production, working with Gary Jones, and seeing the whole process take place just pulled me right in. If I
And
wasn't
what was your job on that? PA
uh,
or
no, I actually was working as a prop master's assistant. So we were doing props and set decorating and, all of that. It was just great.
well,
You
that's
know,
the best film school, right? Is that you're not locked into one job. You sort of wear a number of hats and you just learn while you're doing it.
yeah, it's true. And that was one of the nice things about growing up here in Michigan and working in the freelance world, because I might work as a set decorator one week and then the next week I might be shooting a House of Blinds commercial. You weren't locked in. And when I've worked in LA, it seemed like if you were a second AC, you were a second AC. If you
Hmm.
were a first AC, you were a first AC. And chances are your dad was a first AC. But being here in Michigan, you would just jump on different opportunities and get all this different experience. And it's kind of ironic when I went out to LA for a while and worked out there, they called us the Michigan Mafia. And one of the reasons they liked people from Michigan was because we were familiar with so many different aspects of the process. So
What year was that? Or I should say, roughly what age were you? I'm just curious. Like, I'm trying to timestamp that because I'm curious what the industry was like back, like when you were there.
in LA or
Yeah,
here?
yeah, in LA specifically.
So in Los Angeles, I got a call, and I've talked to Steven about this. The movie Starship Troopers, what is that, 96? I think it was
Yeah,
96.
90s. Yep.
Yep. And they were not going to make their July 4th release date. And, once that date's set, you got to make that date. So
Yeah.
I got a call from a good friend of mine, Eric Pasquarelli. He was out there. He was director of photography for the motion control starships, the big spaceships. I think it's one of the last films to actually shoot giant models. And he said, we need help. Do you want to come out here for probably a month, 2 months, maybe 3 months and you'll be the night guy. So I'll shoot all day on the stage. You come in, there's a handoff. Okay, finish this shot. Then I'll come in the morning, and so I did that. And I ended up being out there over 3 months shooting Starship Troopers.
What was that like? That was your first, correct me if I'm off, that was the first like big like movie set you were on, or am I off?
Boy, that's a good question. Probably the biggest at the
Yeah.
time, for sure.
At that
And
time, I mean, yeah.
yeah.
But
It was fantastic. Just working with a great LA crew and just working all night, and it was wonderful. Yeah, it was great.
but to be fair, and because I had done those kinds of jobs as well. In fact, when we spoke on the phone, it turns out this camera rig that I used to use at Apogee was sold to Sony Image Picture Works, and that's the rig he was using.
And
Um,
that's who I work
yeah,
for. Yeah.
yeah, the Vistaflex. But it just to put it in context, even though you're working on a big movie, because I've done this as well,
Mm.
you're in a dark warehouse, dusty warehouse where black duvetine curtains sort of block off a little stage area.
Mm.
And it's a handful of people. It may be 3 people working all night. And a lot of the work you do is when you're shooting, motion control took forever. So
Yeah.
you're just sitting there watching the camera rig, hoping it doesn't knock a light over or something during the course of the shot. So it's interesting and it's fun, and then there are long periods of absolute boredom.
Right.
Mm.
It's the farthest thing from glamour you can imagine.
Right. Yeah,
Not to
absolutely.
denigrate what he was doing, but that's just sort of the
No,
reality of
that's
those
that's
kinds
what
of
I want, the
jobs.
inside. I've never been in that experience, so now I'm looking at it and I'm like, probably some of the other smaller experiences where it's a little bit more, you probably have more fun with. Like that
Oh
doesn't
yeah.
sound that much fun, like being in there for like overnight and like, okay, watch this camera, make sure it doesn't knock anything over.
And also
Well,
you go home and you're waiting for dailies and you don't know what you're going to get because
mhm.
these were the film days. And
Mm.
sometimes something happens and you go through the entire shot and one frame, there's a weird flicker or a light leak or something. And you go, oh, what is that? So you have to track it down and then you have to go back and shoot the 8 hours again. And
Yeah. Well, and also, Adam, what happens when you're shooting motion control, you do different passes. So you might do one pass that might take an hour or 2 hours. Then you have to bring the camera back home and hope that it comes right back to that exact spot. And then you change the lighting or you turn on all the little LED lights that look like windows on the spaceship. And then you make another pass.
Mm.
And so you could make three, four, five passes on one shot.
Yeah, I remember the one time I had to help, Stephen with a Zoom background. That's the extent of my credit. No.
You saved them. You
And
saved them.
Stephen,
You
it's
saved the
getting
day.
brought up.
fortunately, it's in the digital era. If we had to use an optical printer to fix my background, we'd still be doing it.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Only like 6 people listening to this podcast will understand that reference, but that's okay.
So going further, Tom, into your film career, so what happens next?
So actually, before that, I made a
Okay.
film. So coming right out of college, while I was still in college, I started to shoot a movie called Wendigo. And it took years because one
This
of
was your first.
my first
Okay,
feature.
go ahead. That's
Yeah.
your baby then. I'm gonna say that.
Yeah, my baby. And so the way that I did it and the way that a lot of people do it is once you make the commitment, and as I mentioned, I teach film direction and Motion Picture Institute here in Detroit, and I talk to the students about that commitment. Like you commit to making that movie. Like, okay, I'm going to make this film. You have no money at the time. It's just like you have to make the commitment, and then you start doing it. And
Is
whether
it publicly? Is it when you say commitment, like define that for me, just because you're
it's
like
a
you
pers
announced your
it's a
buddies.
personal commitment, right? So
Wow.
it's like you just start saying, I'm going to make this film. And people become attracted to that. And then, I literally would take the money I made in freelance, buy a roll of film, and then we'd go out and I'd gather my gang and we'd shoot for 1 or 2 days. Then I had to deal with Film Lab in Detroit, a film lab, and I'd be like, look, I don't have a lot of money, but would you at least process it? Then when I get some more money, I'll come down, I'll pay for the work print, and I'll pay you for processing it. So they were wonderful to me as an independent. And so that film probably took 3 to 5 years to finish. So I had a rough cut of the movie, and I ended up meeting another producer, and I said, look, I got this movie. it'll take this much money to finish it. So then at the end, he came in, we finished it, and then Troma picked it up. And it's called Frostbite or Wrath of the Wendigo. And the reason I bring that up is at the time you're like, you had made a film, but I was like, is this the worst film in motion picture history? It
Come on.
it continues to live on. There's this whole move now for practical effects and stop motion, and people are getting sick of the CGI where you can do anything. And there's not a week that goes by, there's not even a few days where I don't see some reference to it on Twitter or X, or I don't get an email, or I don't get a note on Instagram. Somebody's reviewing it. And the love for that movie is just insane. As a matter of fact, here's an interesting story, if I
How
can.
many years ago is that? Just roughly, roughly.
Oh, 40 years ago.
Wow, that's why I
Yeah.
say that's amazing. Go ahead.
Yeah. And the movie just continues to live. So well, in 2019, I get this email. And the email says, is this Tom Chaney, the director of Frostbiter, Wrath of the Wendigo? Because we have a film festival in Akranes, Iceland that we've named after your film. It's our favorite film here. And it's a horror film festival. And if we'd like to invite you to come to our film festival. And I'm literally thinking I'm getting punked. I'm thinking Gary Jones has sent me an email from a weird email. Somebody's pulling something. And I'm literally like, okay, yeah, this is me. And it was real. So there's a film festival in Iceland, Akranes, Iceland, this beautiful fishing town, and it's called Frostbiter, the Frostbiter Film Festival. And they flew me, my wife, and my son out. They put us up for a week. We were guests at the film festival. They showed our movie. They showed my newest film. And it was just like the love for this movie blows my mind.
Well,
Man.
it's crazy. And for people who don't know, Troma is a known distributor. Most people have probably heard of the Toxic Avenger. They used to make movies like that. James Gunn used to make movies for Troma. Lloyd Kaufman's a guy who runs it. And so that was actually a pretty big deal to get picked up by a known distributor, not just some fly-by-night operation, because Troma is a brand. There are people who just will watch a movie because it's from Troma.
Right.
So
That's
that was
true.
for your first film, I mean, quite a coup.
Yeah, and even to this day, we've re-upped the deal with Trauma, and it's still out there, and it still plays, and it's crazy. And I should mention Gary Jones was a big part of that group. I mean, it was me, Gary, Eric Pasquarelli, David Theory, and the four of us just really put that film together and got it done.
So when you guys say names sometimes, and Steven's based on other people he's had in there, I always like to bring up this question or this angle, like what relation I want to we'll get back to the films and the the narrative of your career, of course, but relationships, like you're talking like decades of relationships. Like, yeah, to me, the way I see it as an outsider, kind of looking in and learning about the industry, like Steven and some other guests that he's had on, it's like these are 10-year, 20-year relationships at times, or maybe even more, of like going through and like kind of this common bond of film, of creating all these different things. I'm curious what that concept of relationships through this business has meant to you, Tom.
Oh, it's huge. And I'm sure Stephen would agree with me. Once you work with someone and you develop a relationship and you get along, or if you just work for someone and you do a great job,
Mm.
that is what it's all about, because that person knows that I hired Steven. Steven knocked it out of the park. I didn't have to worry about anything. And the next time I need that role, I'm going to call Steven, or I'm going to call Tom, or I'm going to call Gary Jones. And I've just developed so many friendships with people like Gary Jones and Eric Pasquarelli. It's just constant. And every movie that Gary has ever made, I've been a part of in some way. Very often he'll call me, say, hey, I'm going to do this movie. Can you shoot it? Can't, man. I don't have time. But then he'll call me when the movie's done. He's like, I got 3 days of reshoots. I'm like, I'm in. So I will come in at the end of the project when he's got to shoot the ending or reshoot this scene. And it's just like old times, right? Working with my buddies and knocking it out of the park. And so the relationships are huge in the film industry. And I tell my students all the time, if you go to LA or you go to New York, be the first one on set, be the last one to go. do a great job because who you're doing the job for is going to remember you, and that's a relationship.
Man, it's interesting because I feel like that learning can carry over into many industries and many things, but I just feel like the fact that you're like when you even talk about doing these reshoots, it's like almost like your fingerprints are now on the project, and that
Yeah.
kind of like binds you in a whole different way to me.
No, yeah, absolutely. And, it's something we love doing. And if I couldn't commit a month or 6 weeks to Gary Jones, I'll give him any weekend or a week, or whoever needs help. Doug Schultz, another Michigan filmmaker, he calls me and says, "Hey, can you shoot my film?" Can't commit to that. But once he's got his reshoots, I'm in there. And so again, my fingerprints are on the projects and
Hmm.
it just keeps it going, keeps the juices going.
I
I
mean, I
want
think
to.
I mean, relationships are important and connections in any business, but because the movie business is a freelance business, it's not like you run a store and you have employees who are there all the time. You work together for a short period of time, and it may be 3 years before you have another project. So having someone you can rely on, you get along with, and also I find with the people I have relationships with, like with Gary, and there's another DP that I've worked with for years. There's a shortcut. There's a shortcut to the language. With this other DP, he shot my film Flytrap. It's a guy named Dave Hardberger, who I knew from my motion control visual effects days. I would just say, this shot is The Shining. And he would know, he would look at a hallway and go, oh, I know exactly what that shot is. Shortcut, right? If I had a DP I didn't know, and I said that, they might say, which shot from The Shining? What are you talking about? David knew immediately because we had this relationship.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah,
think
I
that,
agree.
and it's the freelance nature that makes that critical.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's spend some of the time we have left here, Tom. I want to get into Squatch, man. I've been itching that big for everybody that's listening that is not watching this that gets to that's listening in the car. There's a big Sasquatch head, or actually you said that the small Sasquatch head on the back of Tom's desk, just an FYI, and this beautiful Squatch poster as well. So let's get into that a bit. Like, how do you want to tee that one up, Tom? How did this project come about?
So I was in a bookstore in Traverse City, Michigan, and my wife and I love bookstores, and we were just walking through, and I saw Max Brooks had a new book out. Max Brooks wrote World
No,
War
no
Z.
relation.
Yeah, no relation. Well, I didn't know that. Okay. But Max Brooks wrote World War Z, and it was called Devolution. And it was about Bigfoot. And I thought to myself, wow, it's finally coming to the mainstream. For the longest time, we all have this love of going out in the woods and talking about Bigfoot, but whatever. And I thought, maybe it's time to do a Bigfoot movie. And I talked to Gary Jones and started to write a Bigfoot movie called Squatch. And so it just was a perfect high concept idea because the concept sold itself. And so I put together a package, put together a script, and was able to raise the money very quickly. I was not going to start this one with my own money because I really wanted to have certain things. There are so many shortcuts you make when you shoot a movie over 3 or 4 or 5 years and you don't have a whole lot of money. So I put together a budget, presented the
What
film.
are some of those things? Not to get too granular, but just for the would-be or the people that are in the middle of, making a film right now and they're thinking about one direction versus the other. Like what are some high level things when you say that statement?
So let's start off with the Squatch, the creature.
Hmm.
If you were to make this movie for $15,000, I might say, "Hey, Adam, what are you doing this weekend? I got this bear costume." And I would shoot the bear costume so you only see bits and pieces of it, and I would hide it. But here,
Only for you, Tom. Go ahead. No.
but I mean, that's how it would go. It'd be like you come up with creative ways to maybe not see everything or to, make have a shortcut. I wanted to build a Bigfoot costume and I wanted David Greathouse to do it. And so that was a certain amount of money.
Mhm.
And knew I wanted to sound mix out in LA with a guy who had mixed my last movie. That was a certain amount of money. I wanted to pay the entire crew. I wanted to shoot it in long chunks. I wanted to shoot it in the course of one fall, you know? And so I put together the package, and because it was Bigfoot, and because you can do a search on Google for Bigfoot and get 39 million hits,
Hmm.
the investors were immediately attracted to it. And so it made it a lot, making movies is not easy, but it made it a lot easier that you had the money in the bank and we could go and we could book that cabin and we could put everybody up in this hotel and we could bring in meals and you didn't have to worry about the money. And you weren't like, okay, we're shooting this weekend because I got $2,000 and next time I get $2,000 put together, I'll let you know. And then people change, things change. So it's really great to be able to do that. So anyway, we put it together. We premiered it at the Michigan Theater in Ann Arbor. We had 1,200 people there. I believe it was the largest premiere at the Michigan Theater ever. They were overwhelmed, and now it's out there. It's out there everywhere, available for rental and or purchase, and will soon be streaming everywhere.
Mm. I'm curious. So after you, and this is for me, so after a movie's done, it's out there. Like, what happens next? Like, you're finding a distributor, but like, take me through the indie part of what that looks like. And Stephen, happy to have you chime in on this one too, because I'm just curious what happens next.
Well, you can either play the festival route,
Mhm.
right? Which is really hard. To get into a festival, really, you need to know somebody. Especially the independent film world has really changed. It used to be you were truly an independent. You were truly a movie like Squatch. You were a $150,000 film, and Hollywood was doing the multi-million dollar film. So now it's become cool to make an independent film. So you'll see Sean Penn making an independent film and name actors and they're millions of dollars. So it's not the true definition of independent, right? I mean, independent is a young filmmaker or old filmmaker that just makes a commitment and makes their movie come hell or high water. So, I actually hired a producer's rep in this case, Adam, and that producer's rep was a gentleman named Glenn Reynolds. Showed him the film. He loved it. I said, "What do you think? Do we play the festival route?" He said, "No, it's a well-made genre film. Let's go right to my contacts." So Glenn can open doors I can't open. So he walked it in to a number of distributors. We had 5 offers, which is really fortunate. And we went with the best offer that we thought, and not just the best offer, but the people that we felt would really promote the film and get behind it. And that's the world that we're in right now. What I can tell you is, yes, it's easier to make an independent film because of the digital world, but people that we were talking to, maybe 10 or 20% of what they looked at did they put an offer in on. So you got to make a good independent film.
Mhm.
And also it's something we discussed with other guests is you picked the horror genre, which is the best genre for sales. Immediately people will look at it because horror sells. It always has and always will.
Yep, great point.
And yeah, in terms of festivals, festivals in the 90s, festivals were a really big deal, but now they're like 100,000 festivals. And 99.999% of those are absolutely useless in terms of trying to get sales. To be honest, you can get in. If you get in, you can win an award, have laurels all over your poster. But if it's not Cannes, Venice, Berlin, Toronto, I mean, Sundance, if it's not like some major festival, South by Southwest, it's not going to help.
Right.
So, and on my end, a total novice. So it just occurred to me because again, not made a film myself, having not distributed or gone through that process. So the point of going into a festival is to maybe pick up distribution and for a business reason. And then I'll just, before I kind of just turn it over to you for an answer to that, that's a question actually. In my mind, the way I've seen it, just based off of my being around them, is a lot of people are using it for social media and like to build up their personal brands to try to leverage for other projects, whether as directors, writers, anything like that. So they use it a lot for marketing, the marketing side of things. Those are questions. I know there's no question mark posed there,
No,
but
no.
I want your opinions, like, am I like on that?
Stephen is 100% right. There's probably a handful of
That
festivals that
matter.
you're lucky to get in. If you play at Sundance or South by Southwest and somebody sees your film and you don't have distribution, chances are you're going to be talking to people at that festival.
Hmm.
There are hundreds and thousands of other festivals, and those are really, yeah, you can get the little festival feathers and, put it on your website and social
Marketing,
media.
right? Like,
But that can be very important. I mean, you play enough of them and somebody sees it and you can generate buzz. But we went right to distribution
mm,
and now we're being invited to festivals. Like
mm.
we're going to be playing at the Denver Horror Festival in September. We were invited to the Estes Park Bigfoot Festival and our film closed and that's a weekend of fun. It's like a big festival where they have a dinner on Friday night and then Saturday all of Estes Park is all this Bigfoot stuff for sale and then they
Ah,
show
you're the VIP there. Are you kidding me? Come
Oh,
on.
it was amazing. It was an amazing weekend. So we were out in Estes Park in April to
Is
be
there
a
any
part of that.
cosplay? Did people show up as Sasquatch?
Yeah, they did. There
Had
was a
to.
lot of Sasquatches, and there's this Instagram, YouTube guy, Jeff and Bigfoot. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but a very funny group. They were there. And so it's this park ranger, and he's got a Bigfoot that he's friends with, and they're out in the woods and they do these short skits. They were there. Um, it was great. The people from Finding Bigfoot were there, and it's a very large festival they do every April.
Hmm.
So
Very interesting.
yeah,
So
so it's
picking a niche helped in this case, and making a good movie, of course. Like that's a given part. But having that right niche or that right like thing, there's a built-in audience. Like there's a festival for your movie, kind of.
Absolutely. And again, that's what I always say to my students when you're making a film. Number one, don't just write a script and make that film. I always say get coverage, which is hiring a real reader, somebody like Steven, to read it. He doesn't know
I will
you.
not read your script, but someone like me, maybe.
Like,
Yeah, but yeah, and I didn't mean to have a million people email you, Steven. Sorry about that. But you hire people that read scripts and get coverage because you're about to spend 2 or 3 or more years of your life dying, sweating, working so hard, raising money, using your own money. And if you don't have a good script, stop. Don't do it. Write a better script. So we got coverage 2 or 3 times on Squatch before we committed to doing it. So we do feel it's a good movie. And then I'm sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there. But come up with a concept.
yeah.
Like the concept sells itself. Can you come up with something original that is going to put you at the top of the pile as opposed to, well, remaking Halloween or something like that.
Hmm.
Well, it has, and the title, right? When you see Squatch, you know exactly what that movie is.
Great title.
It's not like furry guy in the forest. You go, what is that? Is it about a bunch of furries in the forest? What is that? No, it's
Right,
Squatch. Boom. You see
right.
that poster when you're scrolling through Tubi or wherever, or if you can find a video store, a DVD or a Blu-ray, and you see that name, it tells you everything.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of like all things indie, Steven. Like you see that name and yeah.
Titles, everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I love
In
it.
a
I love
in, in a world where people have no attention span, it's everything.
Hmm. Awesome. Well, I gotta say, Tom, it's been great having you on, getting to know more about your career, and congrats on all the success with Squatch as always. Stephen, great to see you again. I can't wait to, this is another amazing episode as always. You always curate the best guests. I'll start with you, Tom. Tom, if somebody wants to follow up, catch Squatch or any of your work or follow your journey, how do they do that?
So I'm on Instagram. Tom Chaney Official is my tag. Squatch actually has a website, squatchthemovie.com. We're being released through Freestyle Digital Media. If you want to watch the movie now, it's everywhere. Amazon, Prime, Apple, Fandango, Google Play, all of them. You can rent it or purchase it. But on September 14th, I think we start to hit the SVOD market. So you can look for it on all the other platforms on September 14th. So it's out there now.
Perfect. And Stephen, how do people follow what you're up to in your work?
I have social media, Facebook and Instagram at SDB510, and my website, stephendavidbrooks.com.
Fantastic. And for everybody watching, just so you know, we'll definitely put some links in the show notes so that you can just click on the links and head right on over. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time with Mission Matters or our All Things Indie segment, hit that subscribe or follow button. This is a daily show. You heard me correct. Each and every day, we're bringing you new content, new ideas, and hopefully new inspiration to help you along the way on your journey as well. So again, hit that subscribe or follow button. And Stephen, Tom, thanks again for coming on. It's been a pleasure, gentlemen.
Yeah,
Thank you
been
for
fun.
having me.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom.
Honored. Thank you. Talk to you soon.